Welcome back and thank you for staying with us, dear viewers. As we promised you, we'll be talking here in the program about Egypt's progress in generating clean energy and its determination to achieve ambitions in the environment field. The United States and Egypt announced during the strategic dialogue, which was chaired by Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry and his American counterpart Anthony Blinken in Washington, the launch of a high-level joint economic commission and the formation of a joint Egyptian-American working group on climate. The U.S. has praised Egypt's progress in generating clean energy and the ambitious goals for Egypt continue in every domain, including the clean energy area. With us here in this studio, in this morning's edition of The Breakfast Show is Dr. Maged Karam Mahmoud, the Technical Director of the Regional Center for Renewable Energy. A very good morning to you, Dr. Maged. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me today.
Thank you for being here, sir. So how do you see Egypt's attention and its efforts to producing clean energy through solar energy, wind energy, and waterfalls? How do you see the progress in this area?
The progress is in fact acknowledged, let's say, by the international community, and this is the testimonial that proved that we are on the right track. Egypt, over the past 7 years, have adopted several measures from the legal perspective, regulatory perspective, on the ground also activities to attract investments, private investments. And the renewable energy sector in Egypt, as the driver for the clean energy transition, has in fact attracted more than $4 billion of investments over the past 4 years at least. And this means that renewable energy in Egypt is a success story, first of all, that is acknowledged internationally. Second, it is one of the sources of foreign direct investments that empowers the Egyptian economy and contribute to the development in all fields. And when we look into where we are right now, of course we are all aware that Egypt was among the first movers to renewable energy. And if you can think, we are all proud of our history in general, but the first ever solar power plant in the world was installed in Egypt in 1913. So more than 100 years ago. And this was used for water pumping in Maadi when it was agricultural area, for farming, I mean. But then the oil industry evolved and it became the mainstream, so there was no thinking about renewables and so on. And then it remained into the research areas, and then later on we had in the 60s and 70s, of course, inaugurated in the 70s, Zaida, which is our flagship project for this era. So the high dam was contributing at that time for around 80% of electricity needs in Egypt. So Egypt was relying on renewable energy since the 60s for a substantial amount. And then gradually the natural gas took over because we had explored the fields and we have a lot of discoveries in this regard. And we came to a point that natural gas is contributing to more than 90% of the energy mix in Egypt, and electricity mix mainly. So, and then we had, since 1986, there was an agency, dedicated agency, called the New and Renewable Energy Authority. This was established in 1986. But from 1986 up to 2015, it was relying on grant and soft loans from the international community. It was not, I would say, it was just public projects. We can call them pilot projects and so on. Somehow large scale, yes, but they are not dedicated to the private sector and they are not contributing really to the Egyptian economy. What happened in the last 7 years? First of all, we have witnessed a clear political commitment in the constitution of Egypt, renewable energy was mentioned as
Yes.
among the resources for the future of Egypt.
Yes.
This is one thing. This is very, I would
Significant.
say, yes, very significant, and you'll not see a lot of countries indicating to this.
Very true.
Second, a set of regulatory actions, including 3 laws for electricity sector, for renewable energy, and for reforming the new and renewable energy agency or authority. And these laws created several vehicles for the private sector. So these vehicles for the private sector, some of them for large scale projects, which enabled us to have now the same, even more than the capacity. The high dam and the all hydropower in Egypt is 2,800 megawatts. Right now we have 3,200 megawatts of renewable electricity, solar and wind. And the majority of this, 80%, is privately owned power plants that inject the electricity to the grid, and the utility, the Egyptian Electricity Holding Company, the transmission company mainly, pays the price. So over 7 years, you have not only doubled the installed capacity of renewable energy, but also you have changed the way you are doing business through more reliance on private investments. And this was accompanied also with not just achieving the target early than planned. The target was 20% by the year 2022. This was achieved, in fact, earlier this year. So you have achieved your target. Nevertheless, even though you achieved your target, you are not celebrating. Egypt created an ambitious target of having 42% of renewable electricity by the year 2035. So within the coming 14 years, let's say 15 now, 14 years, we will establish more than 50,000 megawatt of renewable electricity. This is a very good sign of energy transition, clean energy transition. Having substantial share of renewable energy in our electricity mix means that, first of all, now when we are sitting together, the light we are using is including a portion from renewable electricity. All the services in Egypt are enjoying the benefits of this. And what are the benefits? Of course, electricity security. And don't forget that the prices right now, while we are talking, is hiking all over the world.
Correct.
So the natural gas prices, oil prices, and we are seeing countries begging the OPEC to increase the supplies. But in Egypt, what we can see that renewable energy is a major fuel saver, saving us from these fluctuations, from this volatility of the energy sector. So this is important. Another dimension which you have referred to is the environmental consideration.
Yeah.
And by resorting to renewable electricity and renewable energy in general, in fact, we are
preserving the planet
first, yes,
yeah.
But preserving our nation first.
Yeah.
The people in Egypt have, we should have a better health. One important component is air quality.
Yeah.
And air quality is improved a lot through relying on clean technology. And
Sure.
clean technologies is not only electricity generation by renewables, but when we are thinking about electrification of transportation system, the monotrain, the monorail, the electric trains, the electric mobility, electric cars, this transition where Egypt is now moving very fast in, is in fact another way of reducing the pollution and then improving the environment, enhancing the quality of living, I would say, enhancing the overall quality of living. This is one direction. Another direction is, for example, you would find in the statements that was communicated
in Washington.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were discussing green economy.
Yeah.
In general.
Actually, that was my next question about green economy and about the formation of the joint Egyptian-American working group on climate. So climate and green economy. We want your answer on that, but after this short break, Engineer Megad. Dear viewers, please stay with us. Welcome back. By the way, the global energy website Renewable Now says that Egypt aims to reach about 42%, Dr. Megad, of the total energy produced from renewable sources by the year 2030, supported, of course, by the ambitious plans currently being developed by the government to produce green hydrogen. I wanted to ask you, Engineer Megad, about the importance of Egypt and the US making joint plans for trade mission on the green economy and a new US aid program for trade reform in support again of clean energy projects.
Well, when we think on the wider perspective, we have in the first segment we discussed renewable energy and how it evolved in Egypt.
It was a very nice chronology, by the way.
Yes. So when we look into the, I would say, the global situation, what are the new power projects, the investment in the power sector worldwide? Where are these? Are they in the typical power plants being established over the past century, or they are in the renewable technologies like solar, wind, waste to energy, etc.? In fact, most of the investments, more than 50%, even 70% of the investments, global investments, in the power sector right now is in renewable energy projects, in clean energy projects. And this is, in fact, very significant for suppliers, for the owners of the technology, for the innovation producers. And they are focused in few regions worldwide that produce the know-how that then is used by within the world. And the projects themselves are, in fact, huge. They are mega projects. And they require consortiums of firms that work in electrical work, mechanical works, foundation, civil work, of course, and many aspects, even logistical issues. And you can think of these projects as, I would say, a crowd puller for several types of industries to feed this. So you are speaking about having a lot of industries and services mobilized to serve a single project. When you have a pipeline of projects, like the 42% that we are targeting, this is a huge pipeline of projects. Who would serve this? Each country in the world, in the leading industrial countries, are now eyeing Egypt to like to have a share in this important pipeline. And in fact, you would find the Americans interested. The German already established a partnership and creating Egyptian-German joint committee. The Korean, the Japanese, the Chinese, of course, and all of them are eyeing the future of Egypt, because Egypt already laid the foundation for substantial growth in that. And another dimension, the growth is not only relying on state-owned projects, but a major concept is coming now on the ground, which is corporate sourcing of renewables. What is corporate sourcing of renewables? When you have, of course, we are now a host in Egypt as a big market on its own of 100 million citizens, but also as a hub for Africa and the Middle East. we are hosting several international companies that are manufacturing in Egypt with the name of their big international companies and exporting worldwide. And many of them have already what we call green mandate. They have commitments to lower their carbon footprint, to reduce the emissions. And this is why they would like to either initiate renewable energy projects on their own, for their own facilities, for example, installing photovoltaic units over their rooftop systems, or purchasing electricity from suppliers of green electricity, whether these are public sector projects or plants, or private-owned projects which are called independent power producers, IPPs. So in such case, you will need investors in the IPP domain. You would need suppliers for the technology. You would need also to align and to accommodate for the need of these corporates, whether industrial, and the industry is wide, very wide, textile industry, food industry, etc. Whether it's commercial, and we have commercial chains hosted in Egypt now, and big malls, and they would require electricity, so you need to design for this, and you need to align for their own demand pattern, and so on. And so all this is creating a momentum around a global action in the economy in general. I would say more impetus to the components, how things would accelerate in the short term. They would like to be present on the ground, not only the US companies, but most of the leading companies worldwide. They would like to have a place in Egypt so that they can serve the growing Egyptian market, and also seizing the opportunity of openness and leadership that Egypt is showing for Africa, to be a place to export to Africa.
So how, sorry. So how can green transition help us in creating jobs for citizens here in Egypt? I guess this is a very important issue.
When you think about green transitions, there are three main aspects. We spoke about one of them, we elaborated a lot about this, the renewable energy component.
Yeah.
Another, and this on its own create jobs, whether on the companies installing projects, providing equipment, doing the operation and maintenance of the projects. All this creates jobs. But on the other hand, on the small scale projects, for example, for residential PV system or solar photovoltaic system for electricity generation, or solar water heaters, for example, for hot water and so on. These are, in fact, I would say this triggers the small to medium enterprises to have their own firms, their own companies that can supply on the community and city levels. So this creates, on the small scale, instead of having one big company consortium supplying mega project like Bindan project, more than 1,400 megawatts, you would find 200 companies. This is a reality right now. 200 companies working on 5 megawatts, 2 megawatts, 3 megawatts, and they are contributing also to the growth, but on the city level, on the rural areas level, on the village level, and so on. So this is another market.
This creates jobs.
Of course.
Sure.
And much higher impact on the jobs because they are localized. Another part on this is the energy efficiency dimension. Well, I said three elements. The first is renewable energy. The second is energy efficiency. The third is energy access. Energy access meaning ensuring electricity reach each citizen in Egypt. And this has been achieved already. And this is such a story. We are among the highest in Africa, almost 100% electricity reach. If you could think, for example, that our brothers in Sudan, they have only 40% electricity access to their citizens, meaning that each 10 families, they have only 4 families enjoying electricity supplies, and the rest are not enjoying electricity supply. So this is, for us, is a success story also.
For sure.
Another.
I'm sorry, but we're out of time. We're enjoying really listening to you, and I'm sure this very important topic deserves a follow-up more than once, God willing. Dr. Maged Karam Mahmoud, the technical director of the renewable energy
Center.
center here in Egypt. We thank you very much for, it's been very informative. We thank you very much and hope to see you again here to continue these discussions. And of course, we know that Egypt is adopting ambitious plans, not only for the transition to the green energy, and the use of cleaner energy, but for the reduction of carbon emissions. Again, Egypt is doing its part as far as the climate change is concerned. It is part of Egypt's vision for sustainable development, for sure, 2030, to cut the carbon emissions and to meet the demand of the climate world. Dear viewers, on behalf of we thank very much Dr. Megid, and my dear colleague Nashwa Rashid will be here momentarily to continue this edition of The Breakfast Show. Please stay with us.